She was a girl with hunger in her eyes, asking a black single father for the food he was carrying out of a South Philly trattoria. But as Marcus Cole paused and truly saw her, he recognized something that would unravel his entire understanding of fate, compassion, and the family he was destined to build. The takeout containers from Gino's were still radiating warmth through the paper bags clutched to his chest, the aroma of garlic and chicken franchise making his own stomach rumble in anticipation. He was digging in his pocket for his car keys when he noticed her. She was perched on a concrete planter, as if she'd been staged there for this precise moment, her gaze fixed on the bags with an intensity that spoke of a need far deeper than a missed meal. "Excuse me, sir." Her voice was a mere whisper, nearly lost to the rumble of traffic on Pace-Yunk Avenue. The young woman had pushed herself off the planter, taking a single tentative step in his direction. Her clothes, a faded hoodie and worn jeans, were clean, but thin, inadequate for the crisp autumn evening. "I'm so sorry to bother you, but if you have any leftovers you aren't going to eat, I would be so grateful." Marcus froze, his hand closing around his keys. The parking lot, wedged between brick row homes, suddenly felt intimate and claustrophobic. An unspoken energy crackled in the space between them. Her voice was surprisingly steady, but he could see the slight tremor in her hands, balled into fists at her sides. "This isn't leftovers," he said, his tone coming out gruffer than he intended. "It's dinner. I just picked it up." A blush bloomed across her cheeks, immediate and painful to witness. "Oh, I'm so sorry. I just assumed—" "Never mind. Have a nice night." She spun away with a speed that snapped her blonde ponytail through the air. He recognized the motion instantly. The practiced retreat of someone accustomed to rejection, someone who had learned to walk away before the full weight of a no could land. "Wait." The word escaped him, a gut reaction that bypassed thought. 2 decades dissolved in a heartbeat, and he was 18 again, shivering in the rain outside a diner in West Philly, meticulously counting the change in his palm. He'd been trying to calculate if 87 cents was enough to buy a coffee and rent a warm booth long enough to figure out where he was going to sleep. The young woman, Chloe, stopped but didn't turn back right away. Her shoulders were stiff, a wall braced against whatever would come next. "Have you eaten today?" he asked, his voice softer this time. When she finally faced him, her blue eyes were shimmering with tears. She refused to let fall. "I had coffee this morning," she said quietly. "I get paid on Friday." The words struck him with the force of a physical blow because he understood their hidden language. He knew the desperate arithmetic she'd been doing in her head, the careful rationing of hours until that next paycheck, the calculation of how many meals could be skipped before her body would betray her at her part-time job. Just then, his phone vibrated in his pocket, a text from his daughter, Maya. "Dad, I'm at Brianna's. Her mom said I can stay for dinner if it's okay. Please say yes." He stared at the screen, at the string of emojis that followed, then looked back at Chloe, who was already inching away, preparing to melt back into the shadows she had emerged from. "My daughter just bailed on me," he heard himself say, the words feeling both foreign and absolutely right. "Would you like to have dinner? There's a parklet just down the block." "Oh, I couldn't, please," she started, shaking her head. The memory of Mr. Henderson's voice echoed in his mind, raspy and kind from years of smoking. "Sometimes, son, accepting a hand up is the most courageous thing a person can do." Marcus gentled his tone even more. "I really hate eating alone." For a long moment, they just stood there, 2 strangers in a city of millions, one holding a warm meal and the other holding her breath. "Okay," Chloe whispered, the sound barely audible. The small public parklet was empty, its metal table still cool from the evening air. Marcus used a stack of napkins from the bag to wipe it down, creating a makeshift placemat. Chloe watched him, her movements small and contained, as if she were terrified of taking up too much space in the world. When he opened the foil containers, a cloud of fragrant steam billowed up between them. Chloe's eyes fluttered shut for a second, and the expression that crossed her face, pure, unadulterated relief, was so private, so raw, that Marcus had to look away. "Please," he said, pushing a container of chicken and pasta toward her. "Eat." She picked up the plastic fork with a reverence usually reserved for antique silver. She chewed the first bite slowly, deliberately, as if committing the taste and texture to memory. Thank you, she said after she swallowed, her voice thick. I haven't had anything this good in a long time. Gino's is a neighborhood institution, Marcus said, trying to inject some normalcy into the situation, but his own throat felt tight. Tuesdays are their family meal deal night. Family meal, she repeated softly, the words tasting strange on her tongue. Something in her tone made him truly study her. She couldn't be more than 23, maybe 24. Her blonde hair, though needing a trim, was clean and had been cared for. She was trying so hard to maintain her dignity. And that, more than anything, broke his heart. I'm Marcus, he offered. Chloe. She managed a small, fleeting smile. So, where do you work? He asked, trying to steer the conversation toward safer ground. At the Wawa, over on Columbus Boulevard. It's just part-time for now, but my manager is great about giving me as many hours as she can. She took another careful bite. I'm on the list for a full-time spot. She said it with a kind of desperate hope, as if full-time was a mythical land of security and peace. Marcus remembered that desperation well, the feeling of running as fast as you could just to stay in the same place. Are you from Philly? He asked. No, I moved here about a year ago, from a small town up near the Poconos. You've never heard of it. She hesitated, seeming to weigh her next words. Needed a fresh start, you know? He did know. He knew exactly what kind of fresh starts demanded a move to a big city where your history couldn't follow you. He noticed her hoodie was still damp at the cuffs. Did you get caught in that downpour earlier? My car is over there. She gestured vaguely toward the far end of the lot. The heater's broken, so I was just waiting for the rain to stop before I tried to warm it up. Something in her phrasing snagged his attention. My car. Not my car broke down. Not I'm waiting for my ride. Marcus's chest tightened. Chloe. Where are you staying? Her fork stilled over the pasta. For a second, he thought she wouldn't answer, that he had pushed too far past the boundary of their strange parking lot truce. Then, so quietly he had to lean in to hear, she said, my car. For the last 3 weeks, the admission hung in the air between them, as heavy and sacred as a confession. Marcus set his own fork down, his appetite completely gone. What happened? And maybe it was the warm food, or the unexpected kindness, or simply the crushing exhaustion of pretending she was okay. But Chloe's story began to pour out of her in broken pieces between bites. Her roommate had vanished one morning, taking her half of the rent money with her. The landlord, unsympathetic, had given her 3 days to cover the full amount or get out. It's amazing how fast 3 days can disappear, she said with a brittle laugh, when you're praying for a miracle that isn't coming. Family? Marcus asked gently. Foster care since I was 9, she stated, as matter-of-factly as if she were telling him her eye color. Aged out 6 years ago. The words were like a code he understood perfectly. Foster care. Aged out. The sterile vocabulary of a system that raised children on paper and then released them into the world at 18 with a black trash bag of belongings and a hollow good luck. I aged out too, Marcus said quietly. 20 years ago. Chloe's head snapped up, her eyes wide with disbelief. You did? 18 years old, everything I owned in a garbage bag, sleeping in my beat-up Ford Escort until the transmission finally gave out. I remember sitting outside places just like this one, trying to figure out how long I could make $7 last. How did you... She gestured around at him, at his clean jacket, the keys to a reliable-looking car on the table, the general air of stability he projected. Someone helped me, he said, his voice catching unexpectedly. An older man, Mr. Henderson, he owned an auto body shop. He saw me one day. He really saw me. And he offered me a job sweeping up and a room over his garage. He paused, the memory still vivid and powerful. He saved my life. Chloe was silent for a moment, absorbing his story. You were lucky, she finally said. I was, he agreed. And before he passed away, he made me promise him something. What? To pass it on. To keep my eyes open for someone else who needed the same chance he gave me. The weight of that promise settled between them. Chloe's eyes widened as the implication of his words dawned on her. Marcus, I'm not asking for... I know you're not. He pulled out his phone and showed her a picture of a bright-eyed 12-year-old with a gap-toothed grin. This is Maya, my daughter. Her mom, Nia, passed away 4 years ago. I'm so sorry. It's been tough, he admitted. Especially lately. Maya's getting to that age. She needs things I don't always know how to give her. A female perspective, emotional support that's not from her clumsy old dad. He took a deep breath, the next words feeling like a leap off a cliff. I have a spare room. It used to be my office. It has its own bathroom. Chloe just stared at him, her fork frozen in midair. I can't pay much, he continued, the plan forming as he spoke, but I need help. Someone to be there when Maya gets home from school, help her with homework, maybe get dinner started on the nights I have to work late. In exchange, room and board. A chance to save up and get back on your feet. You don't even know me. I know you're working every shift they'll give you at a Wawa. I know you're sleeping in your car in the cold, but still showing up for that job. I know you asked for help with more dignity than most people have in their whole lives. And I know what it feels like to have absolutely nobody and nothing except the will to keep going. Chloe's hands were shaking now, a visible tremor. What if she doesn't like me? We'll figure it out. But Chloe, you can't keep sleeping in your car. It's not safe, and it's only going to get colder. Why? The word was a broken whisper. Why would you do this for a stranger? Marcus thought of Mr. Henderson, of that first night in the small room above the garage. He remembered sitting on the edge of the lumpy mattress and crying for an hour, overwhelmed that someone had finally looked at him and seen a human being worthy of help. Because 20 years ago, someone did it for me. He hesitated, then pushed forward with the rest of the truth. And because I think maybe we were put in each other's paths at the exact moment we both needed it. Chloe was crying now, silent tears tracking paths down her cold cheeks. She tried to wipe them away with the rough paper napkins. I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it, he said, pulling a worn business card from his wallet. Take my number. Call me tomorrow. He placed the card on the table. And no matter what you decide, I'm going to take a look at your car. I do HVAC maintenance for a living, but I'm good with engines. I can at least figure out what's wrong with your heater. He met her astonished, tear-filled gaze. No one should have to choose between having gas in their tank and a hot meal, Chloe. No one. 3 days later, Marcus was leaning under the hood of Chloe's 15-year-old Honda Civic, the alternator he'd purchased with his own money in hand. She stood beside him in the auto parts store parking lot, passing him tools when he asked, a quiet and nervous assistant. She kept trying to start sentences that began with, I don't know how I can ever repay you, but he would just grunt from inside the engine bay until she fell silent. Almost got it, he said, his voice muffled by the machinery. This should hold you for another 50,000 miles at least. Marcus, she said, her voice firm this time. About your offer. He slid out from under the hood, wiping grease from his hands with a red rag. Yeah? Are you sure? I mean, really, truly sure. I'm a complete stranger. And Maya, he said, meeting her gaze directly. For her safety, I had to be careful. I ran a background check. He saw a flash of hurt in her eyes and hated that he'd had to do it. It came back clean. The question is, do you want to do this? A shaky laugh escaped her. I've been living in my car for 3 weeks, washing my hair in a gas station bathroom. Of course I want to. I don't want to be a burden or mess up your life. My life's already messy, Marcus said with a wry smile. Maybe a different kind of mess is exactly what we need. When they pulled up to his house, a tidy brick row home in Mount Airy with a carefully tended postage stamp front yard, Maya was a silhouette in the front window. Marcus could see her peering through the curtains, her posture a mixture of adolescent curiosity and deep suspicion. She knows, Chloe asked, her voice trembling slightly. I told her someone was coming to help out around the house and that they'd be staying in the spare room. She's processing. They walked up the concrete steps, Chloe clutching the 2 duffel bags that contained everything she owned in the world. Marcus's heart ached at how light they seemed. Before he could get his key in the lock, the door swung open. You're Chloe. It was a statement, not a question. I am. And you must be Maya. They stood there for a long, charged moment. The grieving 12-year-old and the homeless 23-year-old, each taking the other's measure, trying to calculate what this new variable would mean for their lives. Dad says you're going to help out, Maya said finally. That's the plan, Chloe answered carefully, if it's okay with you. Maya shrugged, a gesture of practiced preteen indifference, but her eyes were sharp and watchful. The spare room's down the hall. It's pretty small. I'm sure it's perfect. The room was small, barely larger than some of the foster home bedrooms Chloe remembered, but it had a clean bed with a handmade quilt, a window that looked out onto a small backyard, an empty dresser, and an attached bathroom with a shower that she would soon discover had glorious, unending hot water. Chloe set down her duffel bags and touched the wall as if to confirm it was real. This is wonderful. Maya lingered in the doorway. Dad put clean sheets on the bed. The Wi-Fi password is on the desk. She paused. He doesn't usually do stuff like this. You know, bring strangers home. He must think you're special or something. Before Chloe could formulate a response, Maya had vanished, her footsteps thudding quickly up the stairs. The first week was a study in awkwardness. Chloe moved through the house like a phantom, terrified of leaving a dish in the sink or making too much noise. Maya observed her with the silent, unblinking scrutiny of a hawk. While Marcus seemed to be working late every single night, whether out of financial necessity or a desire to avoid the tense adjustment period, Chloe couldn't be sure. She quickly fell into a quiet routine. She was up at 5:30, showering and dressing before anyone else was awake. Coffee was brewed by 6, and she learned within 2 days that Marcus liked it strong, with just a hint of cream. She'd have a quiet breakfast at the kitchen table, scrolling through full-time job listings on her phone before heading out for her 4-hour shift at Wawa, a shift that barely covered the cost of gas and the groceries she insisted on buying, despite Marcus's protests. The afternoons were reserved for Maya. For the first few days, the girl would come home from school, offer a clipped hi, and disappear into her room. But on Thursday, Chloe heard a series of frustrated sighs from behind Maya's closed door, followed by the sharp slam of a textbook. She knocked gently. "Everything okay in there?" "Fine," came the muffled reply. Chloe hesitated, then decided to try again. "It's just, if you need a hand with homework." The door flew open. Maya stood there, her eyes red-rimmed with frustration, a challenging look on her face. "Do you know anything about solving for X?" "Actually," Chloe said with a small smile, "I do." That was how Marcus found them an hour later when he walked in the door, carrying takeout bags from a different restaurant. He couldn't bring himself to go back to Gino's just yet. They were sitting at the kitchen table, heads bent together over a math book, with Chloe patiently explaining an equation while Maya, impossibly, was smiling. "Dad," Maya called out, her face bright with accomplishment. "Chloe's a math genius." She actually made it make sense. Marcus stood in the doorway, watching them. Something in his chest, a knot of tension he hadn't even realized he was carrying, began to loosen. "Not a genius," Chloe protested, blushing. "Just had a lot of practice. When you move around a lot, you learn to teach yourself things." "Well, you're better than Dad," Maya declared. "He still uses his fingers to count sometimes." "Hey," Marcus protested, but he was grinning. This became their new normal. Homework sessions at the kitchen table with Chloe's endless patience, a balm for Maya's frustration. Slowly, tentatively, Maya began to open up about things other than math. 2 weeks into her stay, Chloe noticed that the kitchen, while clean, was barely used. It was functional certainly, but it was clear that Marcus and Maya had been subsisting on takeout and frozen meals for so long that the stove had become a decorative appliance. "Can I cook dinner tonight?" she asked Marcus one morning over coffee. "I want to contribute more." "Chloe, you don't have to do that." "I want to," she insisted. "Please, it's the least I can do that evening." The house filled with aromas it hadn't known in years. Chloe had taken $20, all she could spare, and worked a miracle. Ground turkey, pasta, a simple salad, and garlic bread. A feast. Maya came down the stairs, her nose twitching, drawn by the smell. "What is that?" "Just spaghetti," Chloe said, suddenly nervous. "Nothing fancy." "It smells—" Maya trailed off, her voice suddenly small. "It smells like when Mom used to cook." The kitchen fell silent. Chloe froze, a wooden spoon in her hand, terrified she had crossed an invisible sacred line. But it was Marcus who broke the silence, his voice gentle. Nia was a wonderful cook. She would have loved seeing her kitchen being used like this. That night, they ate at the actual dining room table for the first time since Chloe's arrival. They used real plates instead of takeout containers, and the sound of conversation, not the television, filled the silence. "Where did you learn to cook like this?" Maya asked, then immediately shot a glance at her father. Sorry, you don't have to answer that. It's okay. Chloe swirled her spaghetti thoughtfully. I was in 7 different homes in 8 years. You learn to be useful pretty quickly. Some of the foster moms were great cooks, and I paid attention. That sucks, Maya said bluntly. Maya, Marcus warned. No, she's right. It did suck, but it also taught me things. How to read a room, how to make myself helpful, how to never take a good meal for granted. Is that why you work so hard all the time? Maya asked, her gaze surprisingly perceptive. Chloe considered the question. Maybe. When you've grown up with nothing, you feel like everything you have could vanish in an instant. So you hold on tight. You work harder than everyone else. You try to prove you deserve to stay. Marcus's fork stilled. He knew that feeling intimately. That low-grade, constant fear that someone would discover you were an imposter and send you back to the nothingness from which you came. You don't have to prove anything here, Chloe, he said quietly. She met his eyes across the table, and in that moment, an understanding passed between them that was deeper than words. The weeks melted into months. Spring arrived in Philadelphia, painting the city in cherry blossoms and dogwood, and with it came a rhythm to their lives that felt almost like a family's. Chloe would pick Maya up from school on the days Marcus worked late. They'd do homework, cook dinner, and slowly, cautiously, they became friends. Maya started confiding in Chloe about the politics of middle school, about the aching void her mother had left, about a boy in her science class who made her stomach feel like it was full of butterflies. Dad just doesn't get it, Maya confessed one afternoon while they were painting their nails a garish shade of blue. He tries, but talking to him about girl stuff is just awkward. He loves you so much, though. I know. But it's different with you. You actually listen without getting all weird and dad-like. Chloe laughed. You know, Maya explained seriously, immediately trying to fix everything, or forbidding me from leaving the house until I'm 30, or wanting to challenge someone to a duel. I'm pretty sure he wouldn't actually challenge someone to a duel. You didn't see the look he gave my history teacher at parent-teacher conferences when he said I was a bit chatty. I thought Dad was going to melt him with his eyes. They giggled together, and Chloe felt a warmth spread through her chest, a feeling she'd never known before. The profound comfort of being needed, of belonging somewhere. Marcus saw the changes, and they were profound. Maya was laughing more, emerging from her room voluntarily. The angry outbursts that had punctuated their lives since Nia's death had all but disappeared. And Chloe was becoming woven into the fabric of their home. Her coffee mug sat next to his on the counter in the morning. Her jacket was on the hook by the door, and her quiet laughter filled spaces that had been silent for far too long. She had picked up a second part-time job at a bookstore in Chestnut Hill and was diligently saving money. But somehow the conversation about her finding her own apartment never came up. 6 months after that rainy night in the parking lot, Marcus came home to find Chloe and Maya in the kitchen, music playing from a small speaker, both of them dusted with flour. We're making cookies, Maya announced, from scratch. I can see that, Marcus said, arching an eyebrow at the chaotic but happy scene. Chloe found Mom's old recipe box, Maya said, her breath catching. Is that okay? We wanted to try making her famous chocolate chip cookies. Marcus looked at the familiar looped handwriting on the faded index card clutched in his daughter's hand and braced himself for the usual pang of grief. It came, but it was different this time. Softer, gentler, buffered by the pure joy on Maya's face. That's perfect, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Chloe caught his eye over Maya's head and mouthed the word sorry, but he just shook his head slightly. This was good. This was healing. Later that night, after Maya had gone to bed and they were cleaning up the flour-dusted kitchen together, Marcus finally said what had been on his mind. Thank you. For destroying your kitchen, Chloe joked, her hands busy in the soapy water. For that, he smiled. And for bringing life back into it. For bringing life back into us, he paused, gathering his courage. Chloe, I know there's an age gap. I know this whole situation is complicated. But, Dad... Maya's voice drifted down from the top of the stairs, interrupting them. Can Chloe braid my hair for picture day tomorrow? Of course, sweetie, Chloe called back, and just like that, the moment was gone. But something had shifted between them. They were more conscious of each other now. The casual touches, his hand brushing her back as he reached for a glass, her fingers grazing his as she passed him the mail, were now charged with a quiet electricity. And Maya, 12 going on 30, noticed everything. "You know she likes you, right?" she said to Marcus one evening while Chloe was at her bookstore shift. Marcus looked up from the bills he was sorting. "What are you talking about?" "Chloe. She likes you. Likes you." "Maya, that's ridiculous. She's just—" "Dad, I'm 12, not blind," she said, plopping down on the chair next to him. "She looks at you the same way you look at her when you think no one's watching." She leaned in conspiratorially. "And you smile differently when she's around." "Like you used to smile at Mom." Marcus's chest tightened. "Maya, it's complicated. Because she's younger? Because of how she came to live here? Because of a lot of things." "Mom's been gone for 4 years, Dad." Maya's voice was uncharacteristically soft but firm. "She wouldn't want you to be alone forever." "And Chloe. She gets us. She gets our weird, broken family thing. She doesn't try to be Mom. She fits." "When did you get so wise?" "Chloe says I'm an old soul." Maya grinned. "She also says you're being an idiot if you don't see what's right in front of you." But she didn't think I heard that part. Marcus groaned and put his head in his hands. "She said it on the phone to her friend from work. She also said you were worth waiting for." "So?" Maya shrugged. "Just saying." A year to the day after that rainy Tuesday, Chloe got the call she'd been working toward. A clinic affiliated with Penn Medicine, where she'd been temping as a receptionist, offered her a full-time position. Office manager, a real salary, health benefits, paid time off, the whole package. She told Marcus that night at dinner after Maya had gone upstairs to do her homework. It had become their routine, these quiet talks over tea after the house settled down around them. "That's incredible, Chloe," Marcus said, and he meant it. But his smile felt strained, not quite reaching his eyes. "40,000 a year," she continued, her voice filled with a wonder that was still new. I could actually afford my own place now." The words hung between them, a question and a test. "Is that what you want?" Marcus asked, his voice carefully neutral. "Your own place?" Chloe traced the rim of her warm mug, her gaze fixed on the floral pattern. "Is it what you want?" They sat in silence for a long moment, the careful boundaries they had constructed over the past year suddenly feeling as flimsy as tissue paper. "No," Marcus said finally, the single word full of a year's worth of unspoken feelings. "It's not what I want." "Then what do you want, Marcus?" He reached across the small kitchen table and took her hand. Her fingers were warm from the mug, and they trembled slightly in his grasp. "I want to wake up in the morning knowing you're in this house. I want to come home from work and hear you and Maya laughing in the kitchen. I want to stop pretending that you're just the helper when the truth is, you've become my everything." His voice cracked on the last word. "I want to stop being terrified that a 15-year age difference means I'm not allowed to love you." Tears welled in Chloe's eyes. "Marcus, I know I'm older," he pushed on, needing to say it all. "I know I come with baggage. A teenager, a mortgage, a grief that still ambushes me sometimes. I'm not a rich man, Chloe. I'll probably never be. But somewhere between you explaining algebra to my daughter and teaching her how to cook and dancing around my kitchen while dinner burned, I fell completely and hopelessly in love with you." "The dinner only burned that one time," she said through her tears, a wet, shaky laugh escaping her. "Is that really what you're focusing on right now?" He laughed with her. "I think I fell in love with both of you the day Maya showed me Nia's secret recipe for pancakes," she confessed, her voice soft. "She told me her mom would have wanted me to know it because I was family now. And I realized I'd never had that before. A family. A real one. Not one assigned by the state, but one that was chosen and," Marcus prompted, his heart pounding against his ribs. "And I've been terrified to admit that I never want to leave. That this feels more like home than any place I've ever been. That somewhere between fixing your leaky faucet and memorizing Maya's favorite songs and waiting for the sound of your car in the driveway every night, you became my entire world." She squeezed his hand. "The age thing. Marcus, I've been on my own since I was a kid. I've felt like an adult my whole life. The number doesn't matter to me. What matters is that you see me. You really see me, and you still think I'm worth loving." "Worth loving?" Marcus stood, pulling her to her feet. He cupped her face in his large, warm hands. "Chloe, you're worth everything." Their first kiss was tender and hesitant, tasting of chamomile tea and tears and the profound relief of coming home. From the doorway, a voice piped up. "Finally! Do you have any idea how exhausting it's been watching you two do this awkward dance around each other?" "Maya," Marcus started, pulling away from Chloe, flustered, but his daughter just waved a dismissive hand. "I'm going back to bed. But just so we're clear, Chloe, you're not allowed to move out. Dad, you are not allowed to mess this up. And I call being maid of honor at the wedding. Good night." She spun around and flounced back up the stairs, leaving them laughing and crying in the middle of the kitchen. They were married the following spring, in the backyard under the shade of an old maple tree that was just beginning to bud. It was a small, perfect ceremony. A few of Marcus's coworkers, Chloe's manager from the bookstore who had become a dear friend, Maya's best friend and her family, and one very special guest. Eleanor Henderson, Mr. Henderson's widow, a tiny woman with a powerful spirit, sat in the front row, tears of joy streaming down her wrinkled face. "My Charles would be so proud of you, Marcus," she told him before the ceremony, clutching his hand in both of hers. "You kept your promise. You passed it on." Maya, radiant in a deep blue dress, delivered a speech that left not a single dry eye in the yard. "Chloe came into our lives asking for leftovers," she began, her voice clear and strong. "But she ended up becoming the main ingredient we never knew our family was missing. She didn't complete our family, she expanded it. She made it new and whole in a different way. She taught us that my mom's love didn't disappear when she died. It just made room in our hearts for more love to come in. And Chloe brought so much love with her, even when she thought she had nothing left to give." She turned to Chloe, who was already a mess of happy tears. "You taught me that family isn't about blood or last names. It's about choosing each other over and over again, especially when it's scary or doesn't make sense to anyone else. Thank you for choosing us. Thank you for staying." 4 years later, when their son was born, Elijah Henderson Cole, named for the man who saved his father and the father who saved his mother, the story of their meeting had become family legend. Marcus would tell little Eli about the rainy Tuesday that changed the world, about how sometimes life puts you in exactly the right place, even if it feels like you're just standing hungry and afraid in a parking lot. "Your mom was so brave," he'd say, while Chloe listened from the doorway, her heart full. "She asked for help when she needed it most, and that single act of courage changed all of our lives." "Because you helped her," Eli would prompt, even though he knew the story by heart. "Because we helped each other," Marcus would always correct. "She saved us just as much as we saved her." "That's how love works, little man. It multiplies. Someone helped me, so I could help your mom. And someday, you'll help someone too. Like when I shared my goldfish with Leo when he forgot his snack." Exactly like that. Hannah, now 17 and drowning in college applications, would add her own spin when she babysat her little brother. "The thing about our family, Eli, is that we're living proof that the best things can come from the scariest moments. Dad was scared to help a stranger. Mom was scared to accept help. I was scared of letting someone new in, but we all did it anyway. And look what we got. We got each other," Eli would shout, because even at 4, he knew that was the punchline. "We got each other," Hannah would agree, smiling as she thought about the college essay she was writing on resilience, chosen family, and the power of a single moment of kindness. Chloe had gone back to school, earning her degree in social work. She now ran a program for youth aging out of the foster system, connecting them with mentors and helping them secure transitional housing. The spare room that had once been her sanctuary now regularly housed a young person who needed the same chance she'd been given. Marcus would sometimes come home to find her in the kitchen with one of her kids, teaching them how to make a budget or helping them practice for a job interview, and his heart would swell with a love so profound it almost hurt. "You're passing it on," he'd say, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "We're passing it on," she'd correct, because everything in their life was we now. Gino's Trattoria had become their anniversary spot. Every year on that Tuesday in March, they'd go back, order far too much food, and sit at a table near the window looking out at the parking lot where their lives had collided. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if Maya hadn't canceled on you that night?" Chloe asked on their 5th anniversary, Eli sleeping soundly in his carrier beside them. "All the time," Marcus admitted. "One text message. It changed everything." Or maybe, Chloe mused, it would have happened anyway. Maybe the universe would have just found another way to make us cross paths. "You believe in fate like that?" "I believe in kindness," Chloe said. "I believe kindness creates ripples you can't even see. Mr. Henderson was kind to you. You were kind to me. Now we try to be kind to others. Maybe that's all fate is. Just kindness, finding its way from one person to the next until it comes back around." Marcus raised his glass of iced tea. "To kindness, then." "To leftovers that were never really leftovers," Chloe countered, clinking her glass against his. "To family," Hannah added, sliding into the booth beside them. She'd gotten permission from her friend's parents to join them for dessert. The weird, wonderful, chosen kind. As they laughed together, Marcus thought about Mr. Henderson and the promise he'd made all those years ago. He used to think it meant a single act, a debt to be repaid one time. But watching his wife, his daughter, his sleeping son, and knowing that one of Chloe's kids was staying in their spare room that very night, he understood the truth. Kindness wasn't a one-time payment. It was a practice, a lens through which you chose to see the world. It was choosing to see a person's need, not their nuisance. Choosing to see potential where others saw a problem. Choosing love when the math didn't add up. "What are you thinking about?" Chloe asked, her hand finding his on the table. "Just that I'm so glad you were brave enough to ask for my leftovers that night." "Best decision I ever made," she said, her smile lighting up her face. "Being brave enough to ask for what I needed, even when I was terrified." The simple, profound truth of it settled over their table. Sometimes the hardest thing in the world is to admit you need help. Sometimes the most courageous thing is to accept it. And sometimes, if you are incredibly lucky, what begins as an act of desperation can lead you to your destination, a home, a family, and a love story that proves the very best things in life often arrive in the most unexpected ways.